Okay, hello everyone. So my name is Sinis, and today I'll talk about improving Magento performances asynchronously. So it's not maybe the most common way, and it's not the first thing which comes up to your mind when you're thinking about performances, but still it deserves your attention, and I hope after this talk that you'll maybe implement it into your existing or future projects. So a little bit about me. So I'm in love with Magento for the last 6 years. I remember first time I saw Magento. It was my first experience with e-commerce, and I was thinking about it. What can be so complex about web shop? Isn't it just a product page, a couple of buttons? You have to put somewhere shipping information and credit card. So, but at the end I realized that it's more challenging than I thought at first. So also we as a company, and I'm using Amazon Web Services on daily basis for solving some of our issues. And also I'm working at e-commerce. It's a New Zealand-based company, and that's where magic happens. We have a lot of clients with the most challenging tasks, and we're happy we can work hard to deliver them the best experience and the best solutions. So, typical Magento headaches. So Magento out of the box, just to be clear, it doesn't come with all of those issues, but by the time Magento is not tailored for every possible project, you have to make some changes to introduce some extensions, and by doing that you can experience some of those issues which are maybe common for all of you. I'm pretty sure that everyone experienced at least one of those, like high time to first byte or slow checkout. Slow checkout is a never-ending story. It's never fast enough because no matter how many steps you have, for example, if I'm merchant and this is customer who is holding money in his hand, I would like checkout process to be something like this, just to grab his money, because the more time you give him to think, he'll maybe give up from buying your product. So it's not good. Evil customers. Also, indexing process, it can be a problem, especially in community edition of Magento. Although in Magento 2 it's solved, it's pretty good, pretty stable, because there is update by schedule for indexing, but still it's good fit for most of the projects. But if you are dealing with mass inventory updates or mass product updates on daily basis or on every hour, you can still have some issues. So let's put this in perspective. So this is how simple Magento shop looks like. Elastic load balancing, few instances for PHP, Nginx, Apache, whatever, and database instance. More complex Magento shop should look like this. So this is just example how it should like, for example, on AWS services. So you have elastic load balancing, 2 availability zones. So, for example, if one availability zone has some issues, you can easily redirect your traffic to another availability zone. You can promote your read replica to the master and keep serving customers without interruption. There's also some of the other services like Elastic Cache or services for serving emails, queue, CloudFront for CDN, and so on. So, how to handle increased traffic? Well, the maybe quickest way would be just to stop all your servers, and in 5 minutes they will disappear. So that's kind of solution. But let's see what other common solutions we have, which are more reliable and appropriate. So first is vertical scaling. You can add some memory and CPU power. You can use SSD hard disk drives. Then next one would be horizontal scaling, which means you can add additional nodes for web servers. You can add some replicas to your database, etc. Caching, it comes on a lot of ways. You can utilize cache in your code. You can put varnish. It's not really a cache, but it can act as kind of cache. Then there are front-end optimization, just to mention them. So those are not the only solutions, those are just most common. There are a lot of them. Front-end optimization, that could be, for example, minimizing JavaScript and CSS files, deferring execution of JavaScript, then optimizing content above the fold, etc. CDN for faster serving images and static assets to the customer. Or you can say we're out of capacity, please try later. Okay, the last one is not the solution, but I think it's more appropriate to say to the customer something like this than to notify him via HTTP error codes which starts with 5. This, for example, this one is commonly used on some forums. If you are performing search, at some point they'll say, okay, chill out and come again after 1 minute, because that's a pretty expensive operation. You probably can perform denial of service attack by using a search across almost every site if there is no protection. Still, we can push those limits further. So it's not about how fast your website is. So we can measure speed of the website by using many tools, but the thing which matters is it's about how customer perceives it. So if we can trick them to think that our site is fast, then it's good. The most common solution for this is our front-end optimizations, but today we'll talk mostly about back-end optimizations. Not just because front-end optimizations are easier or everyone can do them. It's just because those back-end optimizations are, especially this one, is something which is not the most common thing. So, solution, customer doesn't have to be bothered with your integrations. What does it mean? I saw on many projects, for example, on checkout, when customer places order, a lot of developers are using event on checkout order success to push some data to the third-party service, for example, to the MailChimps or ERP or something like that. That's not good because it's not important for customer, it's important for you. So you don't have to bother customer with that. We have to identify all non-mandatory tasks from customer's perspective, like those ones, and execute them asynchronously. So I list just few common approaches to this. This one I just mentioned. So this is also one of the popular methods which I saw on many places. It's not the best, but still it can be good for some problems. It's not a good fit for everything, like every solution. So we can iterate our table on every hour, and yeah, we can do our processing. Another approach is to use some kind of flag. For example, Magento is using this kind of flags for sending email notifications after order is placed. So that's also one solution, but it's not maybe the best one, especially if we scale up a lot our servers, if we have huge traffic, etc. So message queue, that's the thing that we'll use today to solve some of the issues. What is message queue? So message queue, it's obviously queue of messages which are used between applications or services for communicating between them. Then we have message broker. It's let's say kind of intermediary application which holds all those messages and delivers them to the consumers. And lastly, we have AMQP protocol, which is open standard protocol used for message-oriented middleware. That protocol, I think, first version come up 5 or 6 years ago. There are also some other protocols, but they are not easy to be used on heterogeneous systems. For example, JMS, there is JMS for Java, etc. But AMQP can be used for heterogeneous system, and that's something that we'll use in our favor. And just to mention parts of message queue, or one of the typical message queue communication. So there is publisher, which publish those messages, broker, and consumers. So some of the most popular message brokers are RabbitMQ, which fully implements AMQP protocol, and it's one of the most popular, and it's open source solution. Amazon SQS, it does not implement AMQP protocol strictly, but still it's heterogeneous. Queue, it allows us to communicate between applications which are done on different technologies, etc. Beanstalk, actually Beanstalk is created to solve latency issues on page views by deferring time-consuming operations and executing them asynchronously. So it can be used also. Gearman is not message broker. It's a job server, but I added it because it's also useful for solving some of those issues. It's easy you can easily scale up workers, etc. So what are benefits of this approach? Decoupling components, integration with third-party services. For example, if you have 2 services, you can use queue as a buffer in order to allow them to work at their own pace. So if one service is faster, if one service is producing messages faster, we don't have to worry about the other one because buffer will take them all. We can defer resource into the operations, as I mentioned also. Reliability is also important because we can continue, our shop will continue to work even if, for example, service for inventory or order fulfillment, if it stops, because it's not the reason for stopping orders coming in. Flexibility, it means that by using message queue for communication, we can easily change various parts of our system with the totally different technologies. Magento 1 doesn't have support for message queue out of the box, but there are a few extensions which are open source by community, and they can be used for Magento 1. Regarding Magento 2, there is Magento Queue framework, which is available in enterprise only. They are using RabbitMQ as a messaging broker. Magento 2 Enterprise Edition also comes with database as possible backend for message queue. We'll tackle that later. Regarding the way how it can be used, in Magento 2.0 there is only QXML, while in Magento 2.1 some of those parts of configuration parts are separated, so now we have Q and communication XML. In Magento 2.2 I heard that it will further separate it in order to be more flexible, yeah, but we will see. I'll not bother you too much with those examples, just to show how it looks like in Magento 2 Enterprise Edition. So you can define a topic name. You can see below handler. Here you have to define what class will be used as a handler. Then we have a queue example. As you can see in the broker line, there is name of the topic, and then you can define what is type of our message queue. Is it AMQP, RabbitMQ in this case, or is it the database? And exchange represents the name of a message queue node, which is by default Magento. Yeah, and just two examples how you can consume those messages from queue. One is, for example, by using a cron tab, you can define one method which will be used for consuming those messages and performing some expensive operation, for example. It can be done also from command line, so you can trigger consuming those messages through the command line. Also, it can be this command, you can execute it few times in parallel. On that way you can increase throughput. So that's also one good thing. Community solution. Yeah, there is a community solution for Magento 2 which can be used. It's not maybe that major solution as you can as it's in a Magento Enterprise, obviously, but still it can be good enough, and if you invest some time and maybe improve that modules for the community, it can help to every one of us. Yeah, it's not three different modules. It just first one is module, and other tools are just adapters for using database or message queue. Database is a queue. Depending on who will be asked, you can start a flame war if you ask someone to use database as a queue, because database by its nature it's not queue. There are various reasons for that, why not to do that, but there's also some use cases when it's okay, it's good enough, and it can be used as low volume tasks which are not going to be executed in parallel. So what are the problems? All those problems, they can be solved. There are some ways to overcome them, but still it's hack. No. For example, pulling, which means that you don't have a way to be notified when something new comes to our queue. Postgres have that possibility, but unfortunately Magento doesn't use Postgres. Table locking, one of the typical queries which we'll use for consuming such tables will be select for update, which exclusively locks table, and that can be a problem that can make deadlocks. There is also a solution for that with update and limit. Oh, but yeah, it's hack. Data growth, depending on your traffic and the number of messages, it can be also, at some point, it can be a problem to deal with a lot of messages and then to mark them as read. So let's see use cases, how we can actually use those message queues in real situations. So this is typical flow for placing an order. You have to authorize credit card, create order object, send email confirmation, update admin panel grids, and to notify any third-party integration like ORM, ERP, etc. So we'll try to, we'll just see if we have any of those solutions already available out of the box, and others will try to, say, by using some custom extensions or to develop some code. First one for emails. In Magento 2, Community Edition and Enterprise 2, there is one option for asynchronous sending of email notifications, because there is no reason to send email confirmation notifications immediately after order is placed. It can be done 10 seconds later, 1 minute later. It's not a mission critical thing. So this should be used on production environment. Another thing is grid, order grid. If you remember, there are, let's say, two important tables for orders. One is sales flat order, and another one is sales flat order grid. Sales flat order grid table is used for all those information which you are seeing in your admin panel. It's like reporting table which is compiled from the order address table, order sales flat order table, etc. So we don't want to do this on checkout. We can do this a few seconds later, and on that way we'll speed up checkout process. Customer will not wait for too long until credit card is charged. What about other things? We can optimize this further. Here is one solution. So we can, during making order, during checkout, we can pre-authorize credit card. So we can do reservation on some amount of the card. Then we can reserve order increment ID, which we need, yeah? And we can just show success message to the customer. It's pretty quick, so it can make our checkout almost instant. In the background, what happened? We have to take. Yeah, I just forgot to mention. In the previous step, we have to push that information in one of the message queues, and that will be processed in the background. So we are taking that quote ID, we are making order, we are capturing that credit card, doing post-authorize, and finally we can send email notification. This use case is used on, it's implemented on one of the previous projects that I worked on because there was a lot of orders coming, let's say something like 200 or 300 per minute. So this was the ultimate solution to solve that. Pre-authorized, so this cannot be applied to every project because there are many limitations. It depends on your business requirements. In this case, pre-authorized, it's not supported maybe by every payment processor. Somewhere it's charged additionally. For example, Visa and MasterCard, they are not charging additionally for pre-authorized, but some other payment methods can charge a merchant, which is not a good thing. Yeah. Okay, and let's see further. Subscription services. For example, if you are selling something on subscription basis, you'll have to process a lot of orders, to make a lot of orders in the background at some point. So if it's 100 of subscribers, it's okay, it's easy. We can even do it manually. You know, I can sit for 1 hour and finish it all, and it's okay. If it's few thousand of subscribers, then it can be a problem. Depending on how long it takes. It can take, for example, 1 day to process, to make 10,000 of orders. So it can be a problem. What if you want to process over 1 million of subscribers? Yeah, that can be a problem. That's where you can utilize message queues. This is just no, it's not. You see what's an idea. You can utilize message queue. So what's the idea? You can push all those all those subscription information into queue. Then you can run multiple instances. It's called worker here, and you can consume as much as you can subscriptions in parallel until you find out another bottleneck on the other end. But this is the way to go. Indexing. Indexing, that's a good example because when you make some change to the product, it's saved in table, in database as kind of event. So, for example, if you change name, it will say, okay, name is changed, etc. And then when you run some of the indexing processes, it will take those events and update our indexes. For current index process implementation, the problem is parallelization of that stuff. So what we can do, we can actually push those events, all data changes, we can push them into message queue, and then we can run multiple workers, and we can speed it up a lot. So this is how it. First one, infrastructure example is how it would like on non-Amazon hosting. So you can regularly just run instance with the queue manager, and you can run few workers. What is the problem here? The problem is that you'll need DevOps to manage those servers, and that's a little bit of a problem. On Amazon Web Service, you can take a little bit different approach. As you can see, there is SNS. It's Amazon term. It doesn't have anything with politics. You can push all those messages to SNS. It will pass them to queue, and then we can use Lambda services, which are, it's a function as a service. It's kind of, let's say, mini application which can be scaled easily. We don't have to think about that, and we can push that further, for example, in Elasticsearch. This is a good example how we can speed up our search indexer, for example, because on Amazon, you don't have to worry, as I said, you don't have to worry about scaling up. Amazon will scale up Lambda, Elasticsearch, and our queues, and we don't have to worry about that. We can fire our DevOps in that case. Cache cleaning. It doesn't look like an issue. Yeah, because you can click flush cache and it's okay. It will be flushed. But in reality, if you have a website which has a lot of traffic, maybe it's not that good to clear whole cache at once, because your servers will be under heavy load until they recreate whole cache, and your site will be probably go down for a couple of minutes or maybe even a few hours, depending on the size of your shop. When it occurs on every product save. For example, Magento 2 is cleaning some caches, and also if you, for example, do mass import, then you'll have to clear a lot of cache entries. Some people do flash or whole cache, which is not applicable to the all projects, to all sizes of projects. So what we can do, we can use those cache IDs and tag IDs which have to be flushed. We can push them into message queue, and then we can clear them up one by one in the background, and it will solve our problem. Plus, it will speed up our admin panel. Merchandiser doesn't have to wait for too long until you update your product. It will make them more productive, and it's not annoying. You don't have to wait for too long. there are also some other things which can be placed in background, but yeah. So, product stock updates. For product stock updates, also it's not a problem for everyone, but if you are having updates on daily basis, if you're changing your inventory, then it can be a problem. So slow import, the first problem, except if you're using Magme. I hope most of you have heard for Magme. And another problem is sequential updates. So there is no parallelization. We are using just one core. Idea is to make it parallel, to use all cores, to use multiple workers, and to push that data. Regarding this approach, as you can notice, I mentioned stream. Stream, it's kind of event collection which is used for event-driven development. There is one good implementation of streams which I mention later. But what's good with streams, it's good, for example, if you do product update, it means that not only one indexer will have work to do. You'll have to do probably price updates, maybe search updates, maybe your product flat table, etc. Good thing with the streams is you can just push those data and let consumers to take what they need. Disadvantages. So first is another point of failure, obviously. It can be a problem if your message queue stops, but if you have good infrastructure, or if you have quick DevOps who can react quickly, then it's not a problem. About this point of failure, again, I'll mention Amazon Web Services. They are doing that for you. You don't have to think about that. They will carry it up. Yeah, more work for DevOps. That's a problem. And it adds some kind of complexity to your architecture. Yeah, it adds, but at the same time, it gives a lot more. Further improvements. Just to mention one thing, no matter if you need to process your data in parallel, it's always good to architect your solution by having that in mind. Because at some point your shop can grow up, and it's always good to be prepared from the beginning. Regarding further improvements, I mentioned some things which can be used. It's, for example, microservices. If you remember from one of the previous slides, I mentioned decoupling. So if you decouple some of the Magento functionalities, you can easily replace them completely. With microservice, there is AWS Lambda as a representative. Why is that good? It's good because, okay, you don't have to worry about scaling up, so it can scale up according to your needs and handle everything you throw it. Another thing is AWS Kinesis streams. That's one of the implementation of stream that I mentioned. It's kind of a big log file. So everyone is pushing something in that log file. And unlike queues, those data remains in that stream for 24 hours by default, although it can be increased. And then you can allow various consumers to take what they need to do their process, or to do indexing, like we mentioned, etc. So that's all about performance improvements. So if you have questions, you can ask me now, or you can find me later in the hall, or you can ask me on the Twitter. Simple questions I will answer immediately. Complex questions I'll put in queue and answer asynchronously.
So is there any case where message queue seems like a good idea, but actually it's not?
Well, it's not Messiah, you know. It cannot save you from all problems, but yeah, it can help. It can help in some use cases. I mentioned a few of them. If you have a small shop, okay, you don't have to use them, but as I mentioned, you have to architect your solution with having that in mind. That at some point you will have increased needs for delivering more content quickly and reliably. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nebojša.
Siniša.
Siniša, sorry. This is for you. Finish the name.